Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James. Second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland! This is for you!
Good afternoon, Cavs fans. Welcome to another episode of the Block the Shot to Stop. Skylar Webker, Kevin Lynch here to talk about the best performance, in my opinion, that the Cavs have had in a little while. One of the best ones in the month of March, a 127-122 victory over the Los Angeles Clippers. Pretty stark difference than the game Friday nights against Detroit in a lot of ways, not the least of which the officiating was very solid today, which is a nice change of pace.
Very minimal.
yes. Skylar, let's jump right in. I know I'll kind of set you up here. I knew you wanted to talk about how different the play of Mobley and Allen was this game versus when they played the Clippers just about a week and a half ago.
Yeah, I mean, when they played about a week and a half ago, what was it, their first game or second game on the West Coast swing? Didn't seem like they had very much energy around them. Kind of Zubac and Norman Powell kind of were able to do whatever they wanted to back in about a week and a half ago. That was not the case tonight. I mean, Evan Mobley, to me, this was a stamp, surefire defensive player of the year game from him. I mean, just multiple blocks, especially there in the fourth quarter. I put it in our group chat that he was really locking in and locking down that fourth quarter to to prevent the comeback run from LA. And Evan Mobley just did whatever he wanted to tonight. I mean, he was the most efficient scorer tonight. He's always the most efficient scorer when you're right there, but it just seemed like he had no problem getting in the paint, dug out 12 rebounds to 25 points scoring, 2 steals, 3 assists from Jarrett Allen, 4 from Mobley. So just a great dominant performance from the two big men. And I think you said, that's the advantage of the Cavs is that they have 2 of those guys, and most teams only have 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the signature play for me, at least there in the fourth quarter, was Norman Powell. I think it was Norman Powell or Chris Dunn took a really tough floater. Isaac Okoro played very good defense. They airballed it. And then Mobley helped on the floater. And then Zubac caught the loose ball and was going up for a dunk. Allen's right there contesting him, and Mobley comes from behind and blocks a shot as a shot clock goes off. It was very dramatic. And I was like, that's the Cavs. That's because we have 2 guys, Allen, who is battling Zubac the whole time, and then Mobley, who can come over and help him out when needed, like an instance like that. I agree with you. I think Mobley and Allen are one of, if not the top storyline tonight. And I like combining them together tonight because I thought it was a joint effort between the 2 of them, that they were both very dominant and very complimentary of one another. Mobley had the 3 blocks and was really protecting the rim while Allen just controlled the backboard. He had 12 rebounds and probably had another 4 or 5 that he tipped to teammates that he doesn't get the stat for it, but he controlled the boards. And that was so important because we saw in the last game, Zubac controlled everything in the paint. So he had 25 and 20, I believe. And frankly, it was one of the biggest examples of our big guys getting beat by another big guy all season. So I think there was emphasis coming into the game tonight. I thought, and you talked a lot about Mobley, who was fantastic, and Allen 11 for 12 from the field. I mean, it barely gets more efficient than that. And I thought they were so good in basically every facet of the game, offensively and defensively. And them, along with Donovan Mitchell, who we'll talk about in a minute, were kind of the reasons for the victory tonight.
Yeah, and a victory, I would say we kind of need all these victories. Like I said, our magic number is down to 4. You'd love to get that, whether it's 4 Cavs wins or 2 Cavs wins, 2 Celtics losses, 4 Celtics losses. You'd like to get that wrapped up sooner rather than later because if you look at the schedules, the last 4-ish games are a little more tougher for the Cavs than they are for the Celtics.
Absolutely. Going back to the players, there were a lot of like solid contributions tonight we'll brush on, but like other than Mobley and Allen, we need to talk about Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell had one of his 2 worst streaks of the year recently, during that 4-game slide. Was even during the winning streak, his shooting numbers were off. Like we talked about it previously, wasn't being as aggressive trying to get to the basket. It seemed like he was settling for a lot of threes. And these last 3 games, like all NBA Donovan Mitchell is back. And it's a beautiful thing. Like a perfect combination of aggressiveness, getting his own shots, picking his spots to go to the basket versus, line up a 3 and setting up teammates. He had another 7 assists tonight. It could have been even more if the Cavs weren't so cold from 3-point shooting tonight. But I thought Donovan just continued, and it's so nice to see him turn this around in such a momentous way, kind of going into the playoffs and getting his groove out, because come playoff time, we're going to need him to be the superstar.
I'll go a step further on. It was great seeing the shooting back, the facilitating back, but 4 steals is there was a sequence where kind of dwindling at the end of the game there, and kind of a loose ball, and he dives in initially to cause a jump ball, but was able to dig it out, call a timeout, and just kind of get that extra possession. I think the lead was only up to like 6 or 7, and just getting that extra possession in a late game. Those are things you love to see at any time of the year, but especially as you're getting into the playoffs and especially from your superstar.
That was such a huge play. We've talked about this all season. He is developed so much as a leader, being so kind of motivational towards the guys, but he has been, you're right, even more so than normal, leading by example by doing stuff like getting on the floor. He got on the floor, and as you said, not to only get hands on the ball, it was about to be a jump ball, but he wrestles it away from Zubac, who's roughly the size of a mountain, and is able to like maintain a possession in like a 1 or 2 score game there in the last minute. Huge play to win the game, to set the tone as a leader of the team. And, I'm so fired up to talk about Donovan Mitchell in this way, because, the good and bad about this is like, we get to celebrate all the successes, but then when he was struggling, we had to talk about it. Right. And it's tough to talk about one of the players you enjoy the most and that you're so glad to be on your team struggling, to see him, and more than any of it, more than the effort and the facilitating, the shot making, everything, he's got a swagger back. You can just tell the way he's walking around the court, the way he's talking trash, the way like all these things, he's talking to the officials. Like, he absolutely has a swagger back after it seemed like it kind of left him there for a short time.
Yeah, you could tell he's gearing up for the playoffs, and he's a big reason why. There were some good Utah teams and everything, but like, he's never missed the playoffs in his career. So like, he knows like, all right, we have to switch into this other mentality, other just bulldog Mamba mentality, to like really make a statement and go far, in the ultimate pursuit of a championship.
Yeah. One other individual performance I want to talk about before we talk about the game as a whole. I thought this was another very good game from Isaac Okoro in a very limited role. He only played 11 minutes, but he had 11 points on 4 or 5 shooting, 3 threes, and they were playing him in the fourth quarter to cool off Norman Powell, who finished with 34. He was on Powell for a little bit. He was on Harden for a little bit. They basically brought him in to be the cooler against their best 2 offensive guys with Kawhi out today. And I thought, I was kind of shocked that he only played 11 minutes with the amount of contribution he seemed like he made in such a short time. And just another performance and guy I'm really encouraged by, because I've been very steadfast that I think they're going to need Isaac Okoro in the playoffs, particularly for his defensive capabilities. And if he can, gain a little bit of his rhythm back and be a contributor offensively, that makes him so much more important and so much more playable in the Cavs rotation.
Yeah, it was really good to see a good offensive performance from him. We talk about it all the time. He never has the flashiest box score, but he always has the biggest impact. Yeah. So it's nice to kind of get a game back where he did contribute, 11 points and significantly in the fourth quarter, like you said, to cool off Norman Powell, who was having a great day. James Harden, who always has decent days. He's one of those guys that just is too much of a foul baiter for my enjoyment.
He's a stat accumulator for sure.
Yes, very much. He's the opposite of Isaac Okoro. Like, he's all box score.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. I want to call one other person I thought had a pretty good game or a really good game today, and that was Kenny Atkinson. And one of the ways I want to highlight that is the first quarter and third quarter, the Cavs kind of dominated this game. So you think about like coming out to start the game and then coming out of halftime with adjustments. They even talked about in the broadcast that Kenny and Ty Lue are two of the best in the league at making adjustments at halftime and, kind of playing to combat whatever their opponent's doing to them. I first of all agree with that. I think Ty Lue, we all know Ty Lue is fantastic at that. And we all, gained a lot of confidence in Kenny being one of the best at that as well. And the fact that they outscored the Clippers by 25 in the first and third quarter combined tells me that Kenny and the coaching staff's game plan was very good, and their offensive adjustments at halftime were very good. They slipped a little bit defensively in the second and fourth quarters, but like, it was just something I don't know. I kind of noticed and wanted to call out Kenny for having a good game, because there's been a couple of times that you could kind of question some of the decisions he's made, in the last few weeks, but I thought today was a really good game.
Yeah, and hey, don't look now. This Clippers team has a chance to potentially sneak in and get the fourth seed if they kind of close their season outright. Currently, they're sixth at 42-31, but 4 is the Lakers at 45. I mean, that's a 3-game difference between the two. So, their season didn't start the way they intended, but they're finishing on a very good note. And with Kawhi back, they're a legitimate, contender, I would say, out in the West when fully healthy and have everybody.
I agree. They, if Kawhi is playing anything close to, all-world Kawhi that we've seen, in past years, they have a very good team. I mean, Norman Powell has been a revelation this year, always like a solid player, but turned into like a star offensive player. And we saw a lot of that today. He ended up with 34 on very efficient shooting, 5 threes. Harden, we all know everything that Harden can do. And frankly, he's playing better than you would think he would as he enters kind of his mid-30s and everything. And Zubac, we talked about, and Zubac still had a solid game today at 14 and 13. He just didn't control the game the way he did in the first matchup. I actually really like Zubac as, not an elite center, but in the next group down. I just think he's really solid. They got a bunch of good role players. They have a very good coach, as we talked about. So this is a really quality win that I think the Cavs should be up for. And like you said, it gets them. We were just getting in the sense where everyone was kind of thinking, like, is it possible we actually lose this number 1 seed, right? Because it was before it seemed like impossible, but now it was getting to the point where, like, if you look at the math of like, yes, it was still a high probability the Cavs get it, but now it was like you could at least see the path to not happening. And they get this win today. Hopefully we get lucky and get a Boston loss here and shrink that magic number even more. But I think, as you said earlier, the win today was a huge step to just kind of like solidifying that and being able to start prepping for the playoffs. Yeah.
And, the teams that we have left, New York, San Antonio, Sacramento, Chicago, Indiana. I mean, half of those teams, New York, you're going to see, or New York is in the playoffs. They've punched their ticket. Indiana is fighting for a 4th seed, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They are the 4th seed right now. So, and Sacramento, I haven't been paying attention to them in the West. They're a play-in team right now.
Correct.
So,
they've been floating between the 9 and the 10. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like rollover games because I know Boston, on the other hand, they have like the Wizards and people like rollover teams at the end. So you really want to finish strong. We want to go into the playoffs with momentum and just like finish the job as far as the wire to wire regular season.
Yeah, I absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. And we've talked about this month of March, this month of March being rough for the Cavs. We talked about it a lot on Friday's show. I want to put a little context around that. They were talking about this a lot in the broadcast, some of which I kind of knew and some of it surprised me. They they told us on the broadcast they haven't had a full practice on their home floor in 50 days because of the amount of games that they were playing, because of the amount of traveling they were doing. So it's wild to think that they're going to have their first team practice at home either tomorrow or Tuesday. I can't remember. Also, this is their first 2 days off, but without a game since March 11th. So 3 weeks they've been playing at least every other day, if not back to back. That's a total of 16 games in 28 days. That's wild amount of games. And then the other one, it kind of supports that. Like, they haven't played 2 games in the same city since February 23rd. So like over 5 weeks, they haven't had 2 games at home or even 2 games in like in LA or New York or something like that. So all that's to say, the Cavs have struggled. You never want to struggle and you want to find solutions when you're struggling. But I think some of this, if you look at the human element, is kind of understandable.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I travel a little bit for work, but that's, peanuts compared to these guys.
Mm-hmm.
The kudos to them for just the amount of travel and staying in shape and just the wear and tear and attrition that the league and the travel aspect of the league takes on you. I mean, I don't think a lot of people put the human element into that, where it's like, these guys are getting paid millions. Yeah, but they're also gone, all the time.
Yes, I know. And I understand the concept that it's your job. You need to do your job, but you can do everything you can to try and do your job. And sometimes jet lag gets you. And sometimes you don't get a good night of sleep because the hotel bed stinks. And and so I think it's fair with the amount of, physical exertion it takes to play in the NBA. And then you kind of couple that with the amount of traveling they're doing and, never being away from home or being away from home this whole time and never, being able to be in the same city for more than a night or two. I think it's kind of understandable. And, as we're talking about the human element, just the fact that they've been so good all year, they just about had the 1 seed wrapped up. Like, it's human nature to just slightly take your foot off the gas or to just be a little fatigued and let that fatigue get to you, maybe not get the adrenaline going as much as you usually do. So all that's to say, I think we're just really encouraged by the game today. We're understanding of why some of the struggles have happened, even though we obviously want to see them get corrected before the playoffs. And I think today was a step in the direction, a very good step in the direction of let's get this thing going for the playoffs. Let's start humming again. Let's start flying around defensively. Let's start running the offense at a high level. And for the most part, they did that tonight.
Yeah, it feels good for this, especially as, like you said, you feel like you're getting your swagger back. You're getting back to Cavs basketball, getting back to the rhythm that we've seen all year until this, travel stint. So it feels good to have that, and feels good to only have East Coast games for the rest of the season.
Absolutely, especially for people who do a post game podcast. So,
yes.
The one thing that didn't go quite as well tonight, or I guess a contrast, was the shooting between 2-point range and 3-point range. 3-point range was another game where they hit a low percentage and they also took a ton of them. They took 45 threes tonight, only hit 33%. They took 38 2-pointers and we're making those at a 67% clip. So I would have liked to see, if there's one criticism for the game, I would have liked to see them go to the basket a little bit more aggressively. I thought Mitchell did. I thought the big guys did. I think everyone else kind of settled for a lot of threes. You look down the box score, there's, I don't know, 7-8 guys that took at least 4 or 5 3-pointers. I mean, that's a lot of threes when you're only hitting 33% of them. So that's all to say, I think the 3-point shot is a huge element for this team and going to be a huge positive factor. I still think this team is best off playing inside out, playing with Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland going downhill, feeding Mobley and Allen off of pick and rolls, and then getting kick out higher quality threes. I think some of tonight they were just missing them. I also think they were shooting some that were a little bit more difficult than they're used to shooting.
Yeah, the 3-point shooting has been an issue as of late. I feel like they've been struggling after being at like 50% for most of the season. I feel like they're coming back down to the rest
Yeah.
of the league. But I think the difference. I agree with your point in the sense of playing inside out. Going in for two, trying to draw a foul, kick out. I think if they get their 3-point shooting back, probably not within what they were most of the season, but if they can get closer to 40, 38, 40, 45%, that's the difference between narrow victories and blowing teams out.
100%. So for a lot of the season, the Cavs were the best team at 3-point shooting, and it wasn't that close. They were up over 41% for a good majority of the season. After today's game, they've dropped down to just over 38%. It's actually the first time they're not number one in the league in 3-point shooting in a while, and that kind of shows that them dropping 3 percentage points on 3-point shooting means that they've been shooting pretty below average most of the month, right? And so I think I'm in no way think the 3-point shooting 3-pointer should be taken out of their game plan by any means. I do think, as I said, they could be a little bit more aggressive about getting the ball to the basket, most importantly, getting high quality looks. I think there were more threes that were taken off the dribble tonight than there were in rhythm on a kick out. And I think like it's basically just an offensive adjustment. You just need to run the offense a little bit more efficiently where those threes are off catch and shoot when you have your feet set versus like having to kind of fire one up, off the dribble, off balance, things of that nature. So, alrighty. Well, any other thoughts on this game before we move on and talk about the Knicks on Wednesday night?
Glad to be done with the West.
Yes.
I mean, I guess we still have San Antonio, but
glad
to be done playing the West.
Yeah, I agree with you. So let's talk a little bit about Wednesday. The Knicks are obviously a team that the Cavs could potentially have to deal with in the playoffs. They've been solidly in the 3rd seed all year, although Indiana's closed the gap a little bit on them, but most likely they're going to end up in that 3 seed. Now they actually may have to play Milwaukee in the first round, the way things are shaping up. But the Knicks are, I think on paper, they're a team you would think the Cavs would have a tough matchup with their athleticism and length. But it's honestly a team that this year, and even some of last year, they handle pretty well. They play pretty well against them. Do you have any thoughts on maybe why that is, Skylar, that they would do so well against a team that like kind of has a lineup you would think would give the Cavs trouble?
Defense and numbers. We've been joking about it all year. Tibbs doesn't even know he has a 6th man of the year because he doesn't let the 6th guy get off the bench. So I think it's the numbers. The Cavs is just deeper in all facets of the game, which you get guys out, they get breaks, come back in more fresh. They have the wherewithal to go 48 minutes, where I don't think New York has that. And then I think it's just the defense. I don't think New York is a very good defensive team. Now, I mean, every time we've seen them, they were missing Robinson.
Yeah.
So,
but it's wild to me that like, and I remember talking to the guys from Big Nick Energy. Like, it just doesn't seem like Mitchell Robinson would be a guy that you're like holding all your hope in defensively. I mean, He is a good player, but one, he's hurt all the time, and two, it's not like he's some all-world player that you would think would completely change, their defensive makeup. I do find it interesting that they have 3 guys in Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, and Mikal Bridges, who you would think are high-level perimeter defenders. And you start out with having those 3 guys, and your defense is still like towards the bottom of the league. It's kind of wild to me, and shows how much teams kind of expose Cat not being able to protect the rim as much as a lot of centers can, and that they often go at Jalen Brunson and Miles Bridges, although both of those guys are out right now and most likely won't play Wednesday. At least I know Brunson's out. I'm not exactly sure what McBride's dealing with, but it's very ironic that a team coached by Tibbs with those three guys on the perimeter is such a poor defensive team. I don't really get it.
Yeah, I mean, they've also been dealing with injuries a lot this season. I mean, I'm looking at the matchup predictor. They're predicting Brunson out, Kevin McCullough out, Mikal Bridges out, Cameron Payne out, and then Ariel out or Ariel. What?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's like all of their. They might have 6 guys to actually play.
Yes. Yeah. So it'll be, but it's always, that said, it's always a good matchup. The Knicks obviously have a lot of talented players. They're a very high level team. They obviously are missing their star, as we said, Jalen Brunson right now, which should theoretically make things easier for the Cavs. But they're starting DeLon Wright, who's also a pretty good defender. So like they're going to have, I would be surprised. They have 4 good perimeter defenders going into this game, and then Karl Anthony Towns at center. So I certainly think this team could present some problems for the Cavs, but the Cavs have played extremely well against the Knicks the last several times they've played. So definitely hoping for a similar kind of outcome on Wednesday night.
And I'm just looking at the Knicks kind of magic numbers. So the furthest they could fall is to the 5th. They still have a 3-game gap there, a 4-game gap for the 4th, and a 4-game gap to lock in the 3rd. They can't reach the 2nd at all, and they can't reach the 1st at all.
Yeah, and even with that possibility, they're pretty locked in. They're up 3.5 games with I'm sure they have about 8 games left, the same as the Cavs, and so you would think their playoff position is pretty locked up. Tibbs doesn't believe in rest at any time, so I would expect anybody that can walk will play on Wednesday night. But more than anything, I want to see the Cavs take this momentum from today. And honestly, they played pretty well the last few games, probably the last 5 games or so. Detroit was an uneven performance, but most importantly, they have Donovan Mitchell and their star playing at his, towards his highest level. I would say they're getting really good performances from their 2 big guys pretty regularly. They're getting pretty good contributions from everybody else, particularly the role players. Hunter continues to be a really solid for them. Dean Wade has been really solid, even though he had a kind of an off shooting game today. So all to say, I hope that they could take momentum today. And one thing I hope Ty Jerome comes back. I'd like to see him back on the court, because he really is a game changer for the Cavs. I think maybe the second quarter and the beginning of the fourth quarter don't go quite the way they are if Ty Jerome's in the game, contributing to the offense as high as at a high level like he always does. And those were kind of the 2 times that the Knicks kind of creeped back into the game, was in the first half of the second and fourth quarters, which is Ty Jerome time typically in the rotation. So I would I really hope, I know he's dealing with they said it's a very minor knee injury. Sounds like they're just being precautious, but if he's able, I'd love to see him back on the court and on Wednesday night, because I think he could be a tough matchup for these Knicks players, especially much as he goes to the basket and their inability to protect the paint.
Yeah, and with it being a nationally broadcast game, you think he wants to be back for that one also.
Yeah, you definitely think so. Ty loves the spotlight, if nothing else. Well, with that, we can go ahead and wrap up here. I want to thank Blue Wire for letting us put this on. Thank the Cavs for making our Sunday a much better Sunday by getting a win today. Want to also wish good luck. I have not checked today, but I know it's a really close battle in our March Madness poll with a bunch of guys who aren't us. None of our polls are doing well, so we will not be winning any prizes. Not that we would have anyway. But yeah, wish everybody good luck. And as I said in the last broadcast, if you're going to be in that top 5 and eligible for a prize, please make sure you get a hold of us, DM us on any of the socials, and we'll get in contact with you, especially if you're going to be that grand prize winner and get to go to the Bulls Cavs game. Definitely jealous that you get to go to a game as well as the Bulls are playing. That could be a really good game. So Skylar, anything else before we get out of here?
Not right now.
All right. Well, thank you all as always for listening, and as always,
go Cavs.